So Act 1, Scene 7 was quite a complicated one. We had quite a lot of ideas of what we wanted to do with it. So this scene is quite an important one as it is Lady Macbeth convincing Macbeth to go and kill Duncan. So it's one that's brought up quite a lot in a lot of discussions about Macbeth and everything that goes on. And it's also come up quite a lot in exams as well. So it's definitely something that we need to cover. But we also have to remember that the English department will have covered it a lot as well. So the video that I've got just above is us implementing the mixing desk idea after we kind of discussed about it all and figured out what we wanted to do with it. But to start off with our mixing desk idea, we initially thought about whether we wanted, like, how we were going to use it, because we always thought about using mixing desk in general just to see. Mixing desk is in like controlling emotions of the characters. So we were thinking of doing one for Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, but having the same names for all of them, whether it be one slider for each of them or multiple. But we ended up thinking that possibly doing both Lady Macbeth and Macbeth would be a bit too much. We also thought about having kind of a funny one with like being camp and stuff, but I feel like while that would be useful, just to kind of, at the very beginning anyway, to kind of get the students on board and pay attention a bit more, it also takes away a lot from the scene, and they might not take it seriously after that and realise just how big of a scene this is, really. A lot of the ideas always came back to the students and how much they were to get involved with it. So initially our idea with the mixing desk was that the students could get up or in some way change it, and then that would affect the scene. But then thinking about that, we all thought that, especially me, I thought that getting one student to come up and change it can make all the others feel left out and feel rigged, or they might think that they were told what to do to begin with and not have as much power over it and everything. So I was thinking about using the fake students and getting some sort of noise or thing to get the students to relate what they wanted to the fake student, and then they could go up and change it, just so it's a bit more equal. But then that also makes it feel less real, like they're less in control of it all. Which we wanted them to feel in control, like they're affecting the scene. But then if we do that, then the actors have a massive problem because they have to change all their acting depending on what the sliders are at, which as an actor is such a hard job because you learn a scene one way, so to have multiple sliders, multiple characters that could be changed in any way they want to be, there's so many different ways of doing that scene that it would be really hard to do. And the whole idea of the mixing desk is to show that there are multiple different ways of showing a scene, but having one set of actors very quickly learn all these different ways, as well as the script itself and just everything else going on around it, it's just too much, I think, for them. So from there, we went on to thinking about what if the sliders don't affect the acting affects the sliders. So then we were thinking about what if we started, the acting stays the same no matter what, but then the students move the sliders depending on what they see being shown. So we think potentially, so the fake students would definitely control them all, and we'd have one for each of them. So initially we were thinking of like guilt and ambition and then the joke one as well, but then the joke one becomes unnecessary after the first time. So then we had to think of all three of them, which was quite hard to do, to be honest, because guilt and ambition were very much the first ones we thought of. They were very easy, but the third one is very hard to think of one that was easy to portray and easy to explain, but also wasn't already covered by the other two. Eventually we went with morality, because we thought that was both independent of the other two, like for the most part, but also it's fairly easy to explain, because like it's the sense of rightness and wrongness and all that kind of stuff. So, and a lot of the students should know that already. So I feel like that's the best option we had. especially with how quickly we had to come up with it because we had to get on with other stuff as well. So, eventually, what we ended up doing was having the actors do it a certain way and then get the fake students to get it wrong the first time and then the real students to correct it later when we were going to facilitate afterwards. I think that works really well because it allows the real students to get involved with putting it where they think it should be. And then it also allows this kind of sense of control as well, because if we initially put one slider low, then they could also agree that it's low, but then if the others are wrong, then they could doubt themselves, and then there's this whole discussion that goes on, and it really opens up the facilitation for us to talk to them about it. But then it also kind of allows us to take control of it as well and not have to get the actors to learn so many different ways of this scene. So our stock characters as fake students, we already have one really kind of stupid one. So he's definitely the one that has to get it wrong to begin with, so then we can correct it later. I think throughout all of this, I definitely contributed quite a lot to it all because I was quite passionate about the fake students getting involved as much as they could, and the equality between the real students as well. Just because as a fake student, I don't want to be sat there doing very little throughout the entire piece. So I was definitely pushing to get us involved as much as we could. But then also being a real student in something like this where someone else gets chosen, it feels like it's all rigged and you're kind of being left out a bit as well. So for both kind of versions of it, I wanted it to be as equal as possible, I guess. Overall, with what we ended up with, I'm quite happy with that. I feel like it works quite well. The facilitation side of it, we'll definitely need to talk about. It's quite confusing. We'll have to introduce it in a very certain way. Otherwise, they'll get confused about what's going on, because a lot of us in our class got kind of confused because we changed it so much. So doing all that will definitely be very hard. But yeah, I'm quite happy with what we ended up with. We definitely have to work on it a bit more, as the actors still need to get all their parts done, and that's quite a big thing as well, because they have to learn the Shakespearean but also use it in a way that's effective and try and figure out how they might be feeling throughout the scene and if it changes. And that's also something that we brought up, that we'll do another set of slider changes at the end, because throughout the scene that their emotions might change. So that's all something to think about, and it's all the kind of things that we need to focus on throughout it. But overall, I think we did quite well, and it's definitely a very strong point that we can start off on and make better in the future.